My name is irrelevant now. What matters is what I found, what I documented, and why I can never go home again. I'm recording this from a location I won't disclose, using equipment I purchased with cash, on a network that can't be traced back to me. If you're watching this, it means I'm either still alive and managed to upload it, or I'm dead and someone found my backup drives. Either way, the truth needs to be told. I spent 15 years as a cave rescue specialist and independent spelunker in the Pacific Northwest. I've mapped unmapped systems, pulled injured hikers out of places they never should have gone, and spent more time underground than most people spend in their offices. I know caves. I know geology. I know the difference between natural formations and something else. What I found 3 months ago was something else. It started as a routine geological survey in a remote section of the Cascade Range, about 40 miles from the nearest logging road. I was contracted by the Forest Service to map potential cave systems in an area slated for trail expansion. Standard work. Safe work. Or so I thought. The entrance I found wasn't on any geological survey. It was concealed behind what looked like intentional rockfall, massive boulders positioned in a way that seemed deliberate, not natural. The surrounding trees had scratch marks, deep gouges in the bark at heights that made no sense. 8 feet up. 10 feet up. Territorial markings, I thought at the time, though I couldn't imagine what animal would mark territory like that. I should have turned back then. Every instinct told me this was wrong. But 15 years of cave exploration builds a certain arrogance, a certain confidence that you can handle whatever you find underground. I was wrong. What I discovered in that cave system connects to over 500 missing person cases spanning 30 years. I know because I took evidence, photographs, items, documentation that authorities were never supposed to let leave that site. Evidence that contradicts the official story they're now telling. Evidence that proves those people didn't get lost. They were taken. And something is still taking them. Since making that discovery, I've been followed. My home was broken into twice, though nothing was stolen. I received calls from numbers that don't exist, voices telling me to forget what I saw, to destroy the evidence, to disappear quietly. Federal agents visited me 3 times, each time with the same message. What I found is classified, what I saw never happened, and if I speak about it, I'll face prosecution under laws they wouldn't specify. So I ran. I liquidated what I could, left everything else, and went underground, figuratively, this time. Because the alternative was ending up like the people whose belongings I found in that cave. Missing. Forgotten. Explained away. But before I show you what I discovered, before I share the evidence that cost me everything, I need you to do something. Hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. I know that sounds trivial given what I'm about to reveal, but if something happens to me, if this video gets taken down, if I disappear like those 500 others, I need people to remember. I need witnesses. I need this information to spread far enough that it can't be contained. Because what I found in that cave means everything we've been told about wilderness disappearances is a lie. The entrance was tight, barely 3 feet wide, hidden behind a false rock fall that someone or something had constructed. I had to remove rocks strategically placed to block access, rocks that hadn't fallen naturally, but had been stacked with clear intention. The first 50 feet were standard spelunking, narrow passage, stable rock, moderate descent angle. I was mapping as I went, taking measurements, photographing formations. Then the passage opened. It opened into a tunnel that shouldn't exist. I've explored hundreds of cave systems. I know what water erosion looks like, what geological formation creates natural tunnels. This wasn't that. The walls were too smooth in places, too uniform. There were tool marks, ancient, worn, but visible if you knew what to look for. Something had widened this passage, expanded it, made it traversable for something large. The tunnel descended at a steady angle, spiraling deeper into the mountain. I marked my path with reflective tape, standard protocol, though part of me already knew I shouldn't be here. The temperature was wrong. Caves maintain consistent cool temperatures, usually around 50 degrees regardless of surface conditions. This tunnel was warmer. 60 degrees. 65. As I went deeper, it climbed to 70. Something was generating heat down here. Something was living down here. I found the first marking maybe 400 feet in. Scratches on the wall, deep grooves carved into solid rock, arranged in patterns that repeated every 50 feet or so. Territorial markers. Boundary indicators. A warning system. I photographed them, trying to convince myself they were natural striations, geological features I was misinterpreting. But they weren't. They were too deliberate, too consistent, too intentional. The vocalizations started around 600 feet down. Low-frequency sounds echoing through the passage, resonating in a way that made my chest vibrate. Not animal sounds. Not human sounds. Something in between, harmonic, structured, almost conversational. They came from deeper in the system, from somewhere I couldn't see, and every rational part of my brain screamed at me to turn back. I didn't. God help me, I didn't. I followed those sounds deeper, telling myself it was wind through unusual rock formations, telling myself it was acoustic anomalies, telling myself anything that wasn't the truth I already knew. The tunnel eventually opened into a chamber, so massive my headlamp couldn't find the far walls. Cathedral-sized. Maybe larger. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above me, and multiple tunnel exits branched off in different directions. And that's when I saw what was inside. Belongings. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Arranged along the walls of the chamber in what looked like organized categories. Backpacks hung from rock protrusions, sorted by color and size. Clothing was folded in piles, jackets, shirts, pants, all separated by type. Camping gear was stacked neatly. Tents, sleeping bags, portable stoves. Personal items filled natural shelves in the rock. Wallets, phones, cameras, jewelry, watches. It looked like a museum, a collection, an archive of everything taken from people who vanished and never came home. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my camera, but I started documenting every pile, every section, every item I could capture, because I recognized things. A red backpack with distinctive patches. I'd seen that in a missing person report from 2019. A child stuffed bear wearing a ranger's uniform. That was from a 2015 case that made national news. A woman's hiking boot with a custom orthotic insert. I remembered that detail from a search and rescue operation I'd participated in years ago. These weren't random items. These were belongings from documented disappearances. From people who walked into forests and never walked out. From families who spent years searching, who held out hope, who never got closure. And they were here. All here. Organized like inventory in a warehouse. I moved through the chamber like I was in a nightmare, documenting everything. My scientific training warring with rising panic. Some items were decades old, faded, weathered, ancient. Others were recent, still vibrant with color, still smelling like fabric softener and sunscreen. The newest items were positioned near the chamber center, the oldest pushed toward the edges. They were sorted chronologically, methodically, with clear intelligence and purpose. Near the back of the main chamber, I found the nesting area. Massive beds constructed from moss, branches, ferns, and stolen blankets. Thick layers of organic material and human fabric arranged for something much larger than any person. The beds were enormous, easily 10 feet long, 4 feet wide, built for creatures that would make bears look small. Around the nests were food remains. Deer carcasses stripped clean. Fish bones. But also human food wrappers, granola bar packages, jerky bags, candy wrappers. Things stolen from campsites and backpacks. Evidence of omnivorous diet and regular access to human supplies. And then I found the board. A corkboard. An actual stolen corkboard. The kind you'd find in a classroom or office, propped against the cave wall near the nests. Pinned to it were photographs. Dozens of them. Human faces staring out from Polaroids, from printed photos, from driver's licenses, from missing person flyers. I recognized some of them immediately. A teenage boy who vanished from a campsite in 2012. A young couple who disappeared while hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in 2017. An elderly man who went for a walk near his cabin and never returned in 2009. Face after face after face, all staring out from that board. All documented cases of people who vanished in wilderness areas across Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. They were trophies, records, a catalog of successful hunts spanning 30 years. I photographed every face, every name I could read, every detail visible on those IDs and photos. My camera's memory card was filling up, but I couldn't stop. This was evidence. This was proof. This would answer questions that families had carried for decades. Then I found the diary. It was in a plastic bag, preserved carefully, tucked into a crevice near the board. A child's diary with a purple cover and unicorn stickers. The name inside read Emily Chun, age 11. The last entry was dated September 17, 2003. I'll never forget what it said. I photographed it, but the words burned into my memory before I even touched the camera. Day 6. Mom and Dad are gone. The tall ones took them yesterday. They won't let me leave. They bring me food. They watch me sleep. I think they're learning. I think they want to know about us. I'm so scared. If anyone finds this, please tell my sister, Sarah, I tried to come home. There were more entries. Days of documentation. A child's desperate attempt to record her captivity, her observations, her hope that someone would find her. The entry stopped on day 22. No final note. No conclusion. Just an empty page and everything that implied. I checked missing person databases on my phone. Still had signal somehow, weak but present. Emily Chun disappeared with her parents during a camping trip in Mount Rainier National Park, September 2003. Extensive search. No trace ever found. Case eventually closed as presumed dead, likely animal attack or exposure. She hadn't died. She'd been taken. And for 22 days, maybe longer, she'd been kept here while something studied her. I found more written records. Scratches carved into the cave walls throughout different chambers. Desperate messages left by people who'd been here and either escaped or died trying. John Martinez, if you find this, I'm alive, day 47. They won't let me leave. Sarah Chun, your sister tried. I'm sorry, December 2003. They're intelligent. They understand U.S. Please someone find this. June 2016. We're in the North Cascades. Help U.S. They're keeping U.S. Rachel and Tom Winters. Name after name. Date after date. A timeline of captivity carved into stone by people who knew they might never leave. But here's what made my blood go cold. Some of those messages were recent. Very recent. I found a section deeper in the chamber system. A side tunnel that opened into a smaller cave, maybe 30 feet across. And this cave had been modified. Heavily modified. The floor was leveled. The walls were smooth. And arranged against one wall were sleeping areas, not the massive nests from the main chamber, but human-sized spaces with stolen sleeping bags, pillows, blankets. This was where they kept the living ones. Fresh items were scattered throughout. A North Face jacket with the tags still attached. That style came out last season. A smartphone in a waterproof case. Battery at 12%. Last opened 4 days ago, according to the lock screen timestamp. A water bottle with condensation still on the outside, recently filled. A child sneaker, size 4, with mud still damp on the treads. People had been here. Recently. Maybe they were still here. I found more wall carvings, fresher than the others. Day 12, still alive. They bring food, but won't let U.S. go. Marcus Webb, May 2024. They're studying U.S., imitating our sounds, learning our language. Someone please help. Day 34. If anyone finds this, tell my family I love them. They're not violent, but they won't release U.S. There are 5 of U.S. here now. June 2024. June 2024. 2 months ago. 5 people being held captive in this cave system, while search and rescue operations found nothing, while families held vigils, while cases were classified as lost in wilderness. I need to stop for a moment. I need you to understand what I'm telling you. I need you to comment below. Do you recognize any of these names? Marcus Webb, Emily Chun, John Martinez, Rachel and Tom Winters, Sarah Chun. Do you know someone who vanished in the wilderness and was never found? Because what I discovered means they might not have died from exposure or animal attacks. They might have been taken. They might still be alive somewhere in cave systems we haven't mapped, in places we've never searched. Comment below. Share this video. Tell me if you've heard these names, if you know these cases, if you've experienced something similar. Because this is bigger than one cave. This is systematic. This is organized. This is ongoing. And I need to know I'm not alone in knowing the truth. I was photographing the wall messages, trying to capture every name, every date, every desperate plea, when I heard it. Movement above me. Not behind me. Not in front of me. Above me. The ceiling of this chamber was maybe 40 feet high, natural rock with ledges and outcroppings. I aimed my headlamp upward, and for just a second, I saw them. 3 figures on a high ledge. Massive. 8 feet tall at least. Covered in dark hair. Crouched but upright. Watching me. And the way they were positioned, spread out, flanking my location, coordinated in their observation, made it clear this wasn't accidental. They'd been tracking me since I entered. They'd let me explore. They'd watched me document everything. And now they were deciding what to do with me. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked. I'd spent my entire adult life underground, in confined spaces, dealing with cave-ins and bad air and equipment failures. I'd never been afraid like this. This wasn't environmental danger. This was predatory intelligence. This was being evaluated by something that understood exactly what I was and what I represented. The largest one, center position on the ledge, made a sound. Low. Resonant. The same harmonic vocalization I'd heard earlier but closer, more focused, directed at me specifically. The other 2 responded with similar sounds, creating a kind of conversation I couldn't understand but could feel the structure of. They were communicating. Discussing me. Deciding. I did the only thing I could think of. I raised my hand slowly, palms out, universal non-threat gesture. I spoke, voice shaking, but trying to stay calm. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm not armed. I'm just documenting. I'm just trying to understand. The largest one tilted its head, a gesture so human it made my skin crawl. It was processing my words. It understood language, or at least understood that I was attempting communication. Then it did something I still don't fully believe. It pointed. One massive finger extended toward the tunnel I'd entered through. Then it vocalized again, and this time the sound was different. Shorter. More forceful. A command. Go. The same word others had reported. The same single word that appears in accounts I'd dismissed as fantasy or misidentification. Spoken with effort, with vocal cords not designed for human language, but unmistakable in intent. Leave. Now. While you still can. I didn't need to be told twice. I backed toward the tunnel, keeping my eyes on them, camera still recording, documenting every second. They watched but didn't follow, didn't pursue, just observed as I retreated, maintaining their positions like guards ensuring an intruder's exit. I reached the tunnel and ran. I've never moved faster through a cave system in my life. I didn't stop to remove markers, didn't pause to catch my breath, didn't do anything except climb toward the surface as fast as my legs could carry me. The entire time, I expected to hear pursuit behind me, to feel something grab me from the darkness, to be dragged back into those chambers and added to the collection. But nothing came. They'd let me go, just like they'd let others go over the years, the few who escaped, who made it out, who told stories no one believed. I emerged into daylight 3 hours after I'd entered. It was late afternoon. The forest was silent. Too silent. No birds. No insects. Just that oppressive quiet that means something apex is present, something that makes all other wildlife hide. I documented the entrance location, marked the coordinates, took photographs of the concealed opening and the territorial markings on nearby trees. Then I hiked back to my vehicle and drove straight to the nearest sheriff's office. That was my first mistake. I told them everything, showed them the photographs, gave them the coordinates, explained what I'd found and what it meant for hundreds of missing person cases. The deputies listened, took notes, seemed interested. They confiscated my camera for evidence processing. They took my statement. They told me to go home and that they'd follow up. 2 days later, federal agents showed up at my house. Not FBI. Not Park Service. Something else. Agencies I'd never heard of with credentials I couldn't verify. They told me the cave I'd found was on protected federal land. That my entry constituted trespassing. That the photographs I'd taken were classified under national security provisions. That if I spoke about what I'd found, I'd face criminal prosecution. When I asked about the missing people, about the evidence, about the families who deserved answers, they looked at me like I was insane. "What evidence?" one of them said. "Your camera showed normal geological formations. A cave with some scattered debris. Nothing unusual. Nothing that warrants further investigation." They'd altered the photographs, or substituted them, or claimed they showed nothing remarkable. My documentation of 500 missing people's belongings, my evidence of habitation and captivity, my photographs of written messages and organized collections, all of it dismissed as natural cave formations and animal nesting behavior. The site was sealed within a week. Massive rockfall accidentally triggered during routine geological assessment. The entrance I'd found was buried under tons of stone, permanently inaccessible. Coincidentally destroyed before any independent investigation could be conducted. They were taken, systematically, over decades, by something intelligent enough to organize collections, to sort belongings, to keep captives, to study humans the way we might study animals in a lab. And it's still happening. Since I found that cave, I've tracked 17 new disappearances in wilderness areas across the Pacific Northwest. 17 people who walked into forests and never came back. All in regions with unmapped cave systems. All in areas with historical patterns of unexplained disappearances. The official explanations are always the same. Lost. Animal attack. Fell into ravine. Succumbed to elements. Cases closed within weeks. Searches called off. Families left with nothing but grief and questions. But I know better now. I've seen the truth. I've documented the evidence. I know what's taking them and where they're being kept. And I can't do anything about it. The sites are protected. The evidence is seized or destroyed. Anyone who speaks up is discredited or silenced. The pattern continues. The disappearances continue. And something in those caves continues to collect us, to study us, to keep us like specimens in a nature preserve. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they want. I don't know if the people being kept in those caves are still alive, or if they become something else after months or years of captivity. What I know is that we're not alone in these forests. We've never been alone. And the things that share these mountains with us are far more intelligent, far more organized, and far more dangerous than we've ever admitted. I still have nightmares about that cave, about the faces on that corkboard, about Emily Chen's diary and the desperate wall messages, about that moment when 3 massive figures watched me from above and decided to let me leave. Why? Why did they let me go when they'd kept so many others? Was it mercy? Was it a message? Was I allowed to escape so I could spread the story, could warn others, could make people think twice before hiking alone into wilderness areas? Or was I released because they knew no one would believe me? Because the evidence would be seized, the site destroyed, my credibility ruined? Because I'd become another cautionary tale, another person dismissed as mentally unstable, another voice screaming truth into a void of official denial? I don't know. I'll probably never know. What I do know is that I wake up sometimes and hear that vocalization, low harmonic, structured. I hear it in the wind. I hear it in distant traffic. I hear it in the white noise of fans and air conditioners. That sound is burned into my brain, and I don't think it will ever leave. And sometimes, when I'm trying to sleep, I swear I can hear voices. Faint, distant, coming from nowhere and everywhere. The voices of people calling from underground, from caves no one can access, from prisons no one acknowledges exist. Marcus Webb, Emily Chun, John Martinez. The 5 captives from June. The hundreds of others whose belongings filled that chamber. Are they still alive? Are they still down there? Are they still carving messages into stone walls, hoping someone will find them, knowing no one ever will? I don't have answers. I just have the evidence I managed to save, the story I'm risking everything to tell, and this crushing knowledge that wilderness disappearances aren't mysteries. They're not accidents. They're not tragic coincidences. They're abductions. Systematic, ongoing, protected by official silence and institutional denial. If you've made it this far, if you've listened to everything I've told you, I need you to do something. Hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and most importantly, comment below. Tell me if you recognize these names. Tell me if you know someone who vanished in the wilderness and was never found. Tell me if you've heard similar stories, if you've seen evidence that was dismissed, if you've been silenced or threatened for speaking truth. Tell me I'm not alone in knowing what's really happening out there. Share this video. Spread this information as far as it can go. Because the only way this stops is if enough people know, if enough people demand real investigations, if enough pressure builds that official denial becomes impossible. The families of those 500 missing people deserve answers. The people still being held in caves we can't access deserve rescue. The truth deserves to be told, no matter how impossible it sounds, no matter how much it contradicts official explanations. I don't know how much longer I can stay hidden. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe again. I don't know if sharing this will help or just make me a bigger target. But I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't let that evidence die with me. I couldn't let those faces on that corkboard remain forgotten. So I'm telling you. I'm showing you. I'm giving you the truth that cost me everything. And I'm hoping, desperately hoping, that someone out there believes me. Because if they don't, if this video is dismissed and buried and explained away like everything else, then nothing changes. The disappearances continue. The caves keep their secrets. And something ancient and intelligent continues to take us, one by one, from places we thought were safe. We're not safe. We've never been safe. The wilderness isn't empty. And what lives in those caves is watching, waiting, collecting. Remember these names: Marcus Webb, Emily Chun, John Martinez, Rachel and Tom Winters. The 5 from June 2024. The hundreds of others whose belongings I documented. Remember that they existed. Remember that they were taken. Remember that the official explanations are lies. And if you ever go hiking, if you ever explore remote areas, if you ever venture into forests where people have vanished before, remember what I found in that cave. Remember that something is watching from the trees. Something is listening from underground. And if you see a concealed cave entrance, if you find territorial markings that don't make sense, if you hear low harmonic vocalizations echoing through a forest that's gone silent, don't investigate. Don't document. Don't do what I did. Just run. Run and don't look back. Run and pray they let you go like they let me go. Because not everyone gets that choice. And the ones who don't are still down there, waiting in the dark, hoping someone will remember them. I remember. God help me, I remember every face. And I'll carry them with me until the day something finds me and takes that memory away forever.